Hello, this is a piece of advice for all year 12s. You will be thinking about universities and careers. You will have been thinking about them during the career sessions, at least for the past year. And some of you may have a really clear idea of exactly what you want to do. For example, those of you thinking about medicine know exactly what you want to do. You want to do medicine, you know which A-levels you need to have already chosen, and you're doing the right ones, and you're moving in that direction. Others of you will have chosen your A-levels based on what you're good at, what you enjoy, and will be a little bit more open to various possibilities of things that you might be doing. I'm going to do a number of little recorded sessions. I'm certainly going to do some drop-in sessions. I'll let you know when we can, when we would do those. But I'm going to have some sessions available for you to drop in and talk to me and get some advice about all things university. But this is a bit of an off-the-cuff one. And the reason it's off the cuff is I want to show you how easy it is to use some of the UCAS software. So what this session is about really is using the UCAS course search. Now, let's say that you know that you want to study English literature. I say English literature because I did English literature. And let me show you how the UCAS course search works so that you can then use that yourself. I have not done a dry run of this. I've used UCAS course search many times, obviously, but I haven't just done it just now. I'm doing this off the cuff because I want to show you how easy it can be. So if I go share screen, you can now see what I'm looking at. So here I am on the UCAS website. I'll tell you about this in a moment. So if I go UCAS course search in the search bar, here we are, courses. So here we are. That seems like that was looking at sport there. So if I just go UCAS.com, choosing an undergraduate course. Now the UCAS website has got loads of resources for everything. And whatever it is that you want to know, UCAS can explain, and they have videos and all sorts of things that you can use. But obviously, it's also useful to have an explanation from someone that you know. So let's have a look at this, how to choose a course. You've got a range of information here. This is a new thing, by the way, the Teaching Excellence Framework. I have told you about this. Newer universities tend to have higher Teaching Excellence Framework ratings than older, more traditional universities. That is partly to do with the big thing I would tell you, I've told you about. The Russell Group universities, and certainly some of the most academic of the Russell Group universities, places like Oxford and Cambridge, but also places like Exeter. I could rattle off a list of universities, but a lot of these universities, they are already something of a gold standard. They are very highly regarded, both nationally and internationally, and they have their standards, and they will be looking for you to meet their standards or not meet them. And yeah, I have used the term meat grinding. You know, these are their gears, and you will go between them and become the product that they want, or not. You'll get stuck in the cogs and go elsewhere. That's a harsh way of putting that, but there's some truth to it. I would very much like you to take that with a pinch of salt, though, because that is a harsh way of looking at that. Whereas a new university doesn't have that historical recognition behind it, so has had to adapt over the years to the needs of its students. As university numbers have expanded, as a wider range of students have gone to university, you know, it used to be 10% of people went to university, now it's nearer 50% of people. Well, there are plenty of people who are not quite so traditionally academic as used to go to universities. Well, those newer universities often attracted some of those students, and often students from different backgrounds, students from backgrounds who wouldn't normally have gone to university. So those newer universities developed a skill set of dealing with students who needed sometimes more help, or sometimes things to be delivered in a different way. They also, because they weren't so drowned in tradition, they were able to just say, and what's the best way of delivering something? Let's do it that way. Whereas an older university would say, well, we've done it like this for the last 400 years, so we will carry on doing it just like that, because that's what we do. And there's mileage in both. The big thing I would say to you when you're choosing universities, do not get too hung up on the Russell Group. choose where is the best place for you. But as I say, the teaching excellence framework is a new measure, and newer universities tended to score better. You do see the older universities catching up now, but I've said to many students over the years when they're looking at where to go, and it's a very much an individual and a case-by-case basis, but I've said to many students over the years, I would recommend you went to a newer university because you will fit in better there. They will provide the service that you need in a way that this traditional university you're looking at probably won't. That may be the case for you, it may not be the case for you. That's something for you and me to discuss, for you and your tutor to discuss, and you and your teachers to discuss. Some of you will absolutely want to go to a traditional Russell Group university, and some of you want to go to a newer university. Often newer universities are straightforwardly better in every way, and that's an important distinction to make as well. Newer universities have generally tended to be more innovative. So as the university landscape has changed, newer universities have often done very, very well. And you can see that reflected in the league tables. It's actually reversed now, but there was a trend a couple of years ago where Swansea University, which is a newer university, was performing better than Cardiff University, which was in the Russell Group. So by every measure, you could measure these universities by Swansea was a better university in the league tables. Swansea is now below Cardiff again in the league tables, but I think that's a trend that we'll see increasingly happening as time goes on, which also means that employers will increasingly be more relaxed about which university you went to. There are still some employers who favour older universities and more traditional universities, but I think that is a trend that we definitely see on the decline. So if we look at the UCAS search tool here, search for courses. So I'm going to search for English literature. And there we are. I have 117 providers, starting with the University of Aberdeen, going on to Aberystwyth, going on to Anglia Ruskin. Now, you'll notice that this is done in alphabetical order, as things often are. But there's perhaps so many A's, there's so many courses in English literature, I'm going to get very lost here very quickly. 1,188 courses from 117 providers. That's an awful lot of universities and an awful lot of courses to look through. So I go to the filters. Now, I'm applying for undergraduate. That is your 3-year undergraduate program. You can see here the lovely map. This is a new thing. This didn't used to be come up. I'm applying not for 2020 to 2021, but for 2021 to 2022. I will be applying for full-time, and it's going to be a bachelor's degree. I hope that you already know this, but when it comes to degrees, you at the moment are doing level 3 qualifications, A-levels and BTECs, they are level 3. The next level up would be level 4, surprisingly enough, and that would be a foundation year. There's a number of reasons that people do foundation years, and I'll cover that another time. The next level up from that, I believe a bachelor's is a level 5 qualification. I believe it's level 6, sorry. A level 5 qualification would be a foundation degree. That's a 2-year degree. And then a bachelor's degree is a level 6 qualification. I may be wrong about that. As I say, this is somewhat off the cuff. And a master's would be a level 7 qualification. I will check on that and I will do a proper session where I give you the exact information. But bachelor's tends to be what you will be applying for. You cannot do a master's until you've done a bachelor's. A master's lasts 1 year, usually a bachelor's usually lasts 3 years. So, entry requirements. Calculate your tariff points. Now, that's annoying because you might say, well, I'm going to get 3 A's, or I'm being predicted 3 A's. So where's that? So if I go here, let's calculate tariff points. Tariff points, UCAS. And there we have the tariff point calculator. So you actually don't need to bother with the subject. You can just do A level, and let's say I'm getting A level, A level, B. those are my current predictions. That is 136. So if I go back to that, I think I'm going to get a maximum of 136 points. And let's say I'm comfortable that I will get at least 122, which is a slightly arbitrary number. And here, I should be able to just enter, save, back I go. Now you can see the map has shrunk. So what I've done is I've filtered out at the top end on this particular occasion. I can look in this University of College. So here I could filter by University of College. I'm not going to do that today. But you can see the universities that are with those higher entry requirements going on. How far do you want to travel is a really nice feature. So let's say I'm GL8, 8QG, I think, for Western Burt, and I want to travel up to 150 miles. Save. And there we are. This is my my radius. I, for example, went to Norwich, University of East Anglia. That is too far away by that filter. So do be careful with that filter. I am from right down here in Devon. From there to there was a 5-hour drive. If I drove fast and had an easy run, a 6-hour drive if there was a bit of traffic, and a 9-hour drive if it was a bad day, and it was fine. It wasn't a problem. So I would counsel you not to be too put off by distance. One of our contacts said that what he does, he draws with his daughter. He drew this circle for how far you can go, and then a circle on the inside for how far you must go. Don't come home every weekend with your dirty laundry. Take it go a little bit further. And here I can now see the universities highlighted on the map that I could go to. And now if I go back to the list here, I've got 43 providers to look through, which is still rather a lot, and 351 courses is still rather a lot. But that's a much more digestible thing to look through. So I can look at Aberystwyth. Now I might say I don't want to go to Aberystwyth. That's in a particular area of Wales that I don't want to go to. So I could rule out Aberystwyth. I might now often with these things, and here's the brutal truth in life. Many of your decisions are absolutely made on a bit of a whim. Some of my most important decisions were made on a bit of a whim. I went to University of East Anglia partly because one of the reasons I applied for it in the first place is my English teacher when I was in year 12 was talking about the different courses available for English literature. And said, if you go to University of East Anglia, some of your assessment will be based on creative writing. I thought, yes, please, that's what I want. If you go to Oxford, you will have to study Beowulf. If you go to Exeter, blah, 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 blah. And he just rattled off 3 or 4 examples. And I thought, well, University of East Anglia sounds like the right one for me because that's got creative writing and that's what I want to do. Had he not said that, I have no idea whether I would have applied for it or not. And it was a throwaway comment he made. I had a gap year to India, having been planning a gap year to South America, and I sat next to a family friend and said, oh, I have my gap year in India. And I just thought, yeah, that's where I'll go, actually. Having never had any interest before that in going to India, and that was one of my most formative experiences in my life. Many of our life's decisions are made on a bit of a whim, and it can be things like this. You look at Aston University, Birmingham, don't fancy it, and you just and you don't look. And then you look at University of Birmingham, and you just like that picture. Oh, what about that one? Now, once we get into that is the essentials of how to use course search. The most important thing is this idea of filters. But once you've done that, of course, you want to look at what's available. So if you look at this Bangor University, law with English literature, presumably They also offer English literature, but the entry requirements are lower. So law with English literature has higher entry requirements, so it's offering me that one. And that's one of the courses that's on offer here, because it's because of the way I've done the filters. So if I now look at subjects, you see, I've got all of these different things that can be joined in. Of course, that's what's called joint honours. So I just go English literature, save. I will now find 334 courses. Okay. But I still got French there and English literature, or English literature and education at Aberystwyth. So I've obviously not done something quite right, because what I was trying to do is get rid of all joint honours. So I might be able to find that now quickly. Subjects. I can't see how to get rid of joint honours. I'll see if I can find that another time. Otherwise, I won't worry too much. I can see that that's the one I want to apply for at Aberystwyth. The theoretical me doesn't want to be a teacher, so doesn't want to do English literature and education, doesn't speak French. So then as we go down the list, we start seeing English language and literature, English and classical literature and civilization, drama and English. And you can see we've got 8 more undergraduate courses. So in each of these courses, you've got various things that you can look at. Now, if we have a look at this, if I click on that page now for English, we now have a TEF Gold standard for Birmingham University. I think it used to be silver, but certainly gold now. So that's their advertising bit. And then we have stuff about modules. We've also got some statistics and entry requirements. Now, what I would really recommend that you do is that you really look carefully at the different modules. I made the point about that throwaway comment made by my English teacher when I were a lad. Different universities have very different courses. As I say, English at Oxford involves learning Old English, Anglo-Saxon, basically German. It involves learning that language and studying Beowulf and other similar literature as a core part of its course, or it certainly used to. I don't know if Oxford still does that. I would imagine it does. Whereas when I went to university, the only 2 providers that offered any creative writing were University of East Anglia and University of Warwick. A number of providers have started to offer creative writing courses now because they're so popular. Some university courses have a great deal of flexibility. You can study, if you're doing history, you have a great choice about what you're able to study, whereas some have a very restricted, these are our units, you do 5, and you get to choose 1 per year that isn't part of that core 5. And then maybe in 3rd year, you get to specialize. So each university is quite different in how they structure their courses. So it's very, very important that you actually get in and look in detail at their pages. So if I go down here, it says view our course page right down the bottom. So if I go here, we have more details, and you see I've left the UCAS website. So now we have a lot more information. Now, if I click on modules, there we are. You see, you get a much fuller list. And as you can see, the compulsory modules is a long list in year 1 and a shorter list in year 3. That tends to be normal with all sort of arts and humanities subjects. So I hope this has been a useful explanation of how to use the UCAS course search tool. As you can see, it is pretty simple. My advice to you is to simply bimble around on UCAS course search and really have a look. I'll give you another little anecdote. My brother, back in his day, the internet wasn't really much of a thing at all. The UCAS course directory was like a phone book. And he was told by my parents, no, you are going to university. You're not going to be a gamekeeper. You're going to go to university and you're going to study. So he went up there very reluctantly. and came down at the end of a long evening and said, yes, I want to do anthropology. And they were very pleased and said, I want to go to SOAS University, School of Oriental and African Studies. I want to go to SOAS. I want to study anthropology. And that was a story they told for years of like, yeah, it was wonderful. He just went up there for the evening and really sorted himself out. It does strike me that anthropology is fairly early on in any course directory. That he chose one of the A subjects as his, oh, all right, I'll do a degree then. He ended up doing African studies rather than anthropology. But his is now in charge of quite a huge NHS budget. He's an NHS manager now, but I suspect that decision he made was made on a bit of a whim, and his life has actually and his career has worked out very well since. So yes, there probably will be an element of whimsy, but my advice really is, yes, there will be whimsy. You will look at something and think, I just don't like it. And that's okay. And sometimes you're like, oh, I really like it. But always look deeper. Because if you just go on a whim, if you just think, oh, that's the thing for me because I've just looked at it and I like the sound of it, rather than actually doing your research and thinking about it carefully, that's when you can lead to disappointing outcomes and that kind of thing. So UCAS course search, and then looking at the universities quite carefully. There are a number of things you need to look at. The TEF framework, their place in the league tables. Actually, it occurs to me that I might very quickly now, whilst I'm recording myself, show you the league tables. University league tables need to be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt. They are not the be-all and end-all. They are useful, but what's perhaps more useful is subject league tables. So if I go university league tables, UK. Here we are, the complete university guide, and we have the Guardian and the Times. So we've got rival university rankings going on. I only go with the complete university guide one. You can use the other ones as well. Oh, look, it's my alma mater, University of East Anglia, advertising itself to me. I don't want to allow that. Agree to cookies. So now, when you look at overall university league tables, here we have Cambridge and Oxford, which are always position 1 and 2 in this country, usually, I think, in that order. University of St Andrews, LSE, Imperial College London, Durham. These ones are nearly always Imp and Durham, 5 and 6. Now, Lancaster is very good. Loughborough is a rising star. Loughborough was not in the top 10 or even, I believe, in the top 20 when I went to university, but it's now really risen up. And that's an example of a newer university that is just doing really, really well for various reasons. Bath, UCL, Exeter. There we have some of the what used to be called the Premier League universities. And they will nearly always be in the top 10 or about the top 10. This list of universities looks very, very familiar every time. They are usually near the top, but then we see these rising stars. University of Glasgow, you can see that it's gone up 6 places since last year. University of Nottingham, University of East Anglia, down 7. So that was very much, a couple of years ago, and this is an important point, a couple of years ago, it was better in the league tables than University of Birmingham. So what's important to bear in mind with that is it's not like buying a smartphone. With a smartphone, you can look on a list and it'll say, this is the best smartphone in the world. And here, I'll have that one then. And you can just have it because you can afford it if you can afford it. Whereas at the university, you actually have to get in there, but also being number 13 doesn't necessarily mean anything compared to being number 6 in the grand scheme of things. They will have various strengths and weaknesses. Now, what are these scores based on is quite an important thing to talk about. Entry standards is one thing. So if they have high entry standards, if they're hard to get into, they get a higher percentage. Student satisfaction. If you have Now, I remember being at university and people going around when we were given the student satisfaction survey and saying, for God's sake, give it to 10 out of 10. Because if you all give it 10 out of 10, we get to be higher in the league table, so we graduate from a better university than the one that we left. That student's gaming the system. So student satisfaction, I think you should look at, because yeah, how satisfied are the students, but you should also take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Now, research quality. That's a very important measure in many ways. It means, what are the academics looking into? What are the papers that they are studying? What are the books that they are writing? All that kind of thing. How are they adding to the knowledge of humanity? If they've got really good research quality, that might mean that they have the very best people there. It might mean that they have, actually famous academics, people that you may have heard of, like Noam Chomsky, working at that university. Cool. But does being a good researcher equate to being a good professor or teacher? Not necessarily. I can remember at my school, the maths department, the cleverest mathematician, Mr. R, was by far and away the worst maths teacher. His intelligence was absolutely stratospheric. We didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And that can indeed be the case with that. So research quality is important, but it might not make any impact at all on your experience of university. And then graduate prospects, how employable are our graduates at the end of that? Well, we know that Oxford and Cambridge graduates are very desirable, but that has a lot to do with entry standards rather than anything that's happened at university. So graduate prospects can be an important thing. You might think, well, how employable will I be if I've gone to that university? But as you can see, if you actually look at the percentages here, they're all, 80s and 70s. University of Oxford is 83. If we go down to number 32 at random, University of Sussex, which is a very good university, by the way, 80%. University of York, 82%. University of Liverpool, 85%. So all of these measures need to be taken with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but they can give you a bit of a ballpark about what sort of a university you're looking at. Now, what's more important is the subject league tables. So you don't have every single subject on these, I'm afraid, but you do have a fairly long list. So let's say I want to do environmental geoscience. Well, here we go, geography and environmental science, or geology. Let's go geology. Apply. And now I can find where the best universities are. And let's say I'm looking at getting BBC. So I know actually at that point that I can discount Cambridge. And I can start looking lower down the table there. But yeah, what I've often said to people in the past, because as consumers, we tend to look for the best. When I buy a smartphone every few years or so, I tend to look at like Tech Radar or CNET or a website, and I type in best smartphone 2020, and I look at the list of best smartphones, and I tend to go, well, I'll go for the one that they say is the best. Because it doesn't necessarily cost any more than the one that isn't. So we're very used to always looking for the best things, I think, as consumers. Which is the best thing? I'll have that. But actually, with universities, what I've often said to people is just zoom down the list a bit, have a look around there, and often there's that element of whimsy, like, oh, Leicester, I like the sound of that, or Keele. Where is Keele? Let's find out. So I go view courses. Now I'm not in the UCAS course search now. I'm in a different place, but I can look at the various courses they have on offer. Now, notice how many different sorts of courses there are. Astrophysics and geology, biology and geology, chemistry and geology. Looking at things like this might make you think, oh, hang on, I'm doing physics, I'm doing geography. I'd actually love to do astrophysics and geology. That sounds amazing. And it's a sandwich placement year. Or even better, a sandwich placement means that you do 2 years of study, 1 year in industry, potentially getting a job afterwards, 1 year back at university, and often with that sandwich year, you've increased your employability, and often the places that have had you for the sandwich year are very happy to have you back as a graduate. But yeah, little things like this can help you really discover. I don't know how much you've all been using UCAS course search. Some of you are saying you've not used it hardly at all, and some of you are saying that you've used a great deal of it. My advice to you really is to really get on and have a look at that. Now, I'm aware that I've been speaking about half an hour now. I hope this has been helpful. And you can, of course, please do get in touch with me and your tutors and your teachers about everything that you're thinking about with regard to university. I will make a number of other videos where I talk you through certain things like how to write a personal statement and all that kind of thing. So, yes, I hope this has been helpful to you, and thank you very much for making it this far into the video. Take care of yourselves.